Hello, 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 and welcome to episode numero dos of The Blind Observer with me, your boy, Mender, the original Blind Observer. And if you want to follow me on the gram, you can check me out at The Blind Observer 7, and ironically enough, that's the age I went blind at. Legally blind, technically, macular degeneration. You may have seen these awesome kids on Ellen who are also promoting blind awareness, and they're doing a lot more cool stuff with it. I'm just giving you my blind observations, as always, and doing it from my Gemini perspective as optimistic on one hand and comedic on the other. And today we are having one of my favorite cocktail wines. And as always on The Blind Observer, we like to have a little nightcap while we have a talk. Last week we had some Blantons. This week we're doing a Josh Cabernet, which is one of my favorite cabs just because it's cheap and I'm not a big wine person. So it's like $12 a bottle. Highly recommend it. It's easy. Goes good with food. Nice at dinners. Things like that. I just don't have like a crazy palate to be like, oh, I taste all these different flavors in wine and things of that nature. But welcome into the second episode. And if you were with us last episode, you know that I promoted episode 2 would be about religion and heaven. Ooh. And ironically enough, it comes today when I was at church. Praise Jesus. What? My cousin Harrison, he was getting baptized. Whatever, it is what it is. But moving forward, I wasn't raised religious, and I've always told people, obviously I believe in faith. I think, believing in a higher power is simple in the sense of your parents created you, your grandparents created your parents, your great-grandparents created your grandparents, and so on and so forth. And so it started somewhere, right? So it just started somewhere. So you believe in that it started at some point in time and then just carried on. And every generation since then has wanted something better for the next generation. Prosperity, health, wealth, love, etc. So it all started somewhere, right? So this belief and faith and hope and others, kind of stems from this beginning of time, which I definitely believe in. But here's the struggle that I have, being a realist, and if anyone has their own 2 cents about them, which is the right religion? I wasn't raised religious. My parents took me to church on holidays, but by no means was I going to communion or, whatever it is, Bible study or things of that nature. So you sit there, and as a realistic person, I don't know what the odds are exactly, but I would guess that 90% of the people that are religious are that way because they were raised that way, and 10 to maybe 15% of the people who are religious have either found that religion later in life or converted, which is fine. But I'm of the believer, if there is a God, which I believe there's a God, a creator, you're telling me that there's only one right religion? To me that makes no sense. 2/3 of the world's population are wrong and 1/3 is right. And of those 2/3, they're all going to hell because they didn't believe in the quote-unquote right religion. It doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make any logical sense. However, in my world, not necessarily my religion, if you believe in the golden rule and do unto others as you want to do unto yourself, you're going to have a really good chance at making it to quote-unquote the afterlife one day. Think about that for a minute. The golden rule. Just treat other people like you want to be treated. There's a novel idea. Don't be a jerk. Don't be rude. Treat other people kindly. Help out where you can help out, and hopefully other people will help you out when they can help you out. And that's the way to kind of look at things, is the golden rule, not necessarily in terms of religion. But through the research I have done in religion, a lot of different religions in the world, whether it be Islam, Christianity, Judaism, they all talk about a big flood, so they're kind of all in the same ballpark. And today when I was sitting in church, it kind of seemed like a cult. They would say something, and then the congregation would be I don't even know. I don't remember. I didn't drink the whole bottle. I'm just saying. But it was and praise Jesus. And again, I can't see the books either, too, so church is even more funny to me in that aspect. Because, they're turn to page 228 in your book. I'm just blind and helpless. But it was weird to me today because I do love the idea of church because it's like the original community and other people are quote unquote helping out, and like setting up programs and like bringing people together and singing. So it's a great concept of bringing a community together. But who's to say that we can't challenge outside the box thinking when it comes to religion? Again, someone started all of this, or two people or things of that nature started somewhere, but it's like the game telephone. Have you ever played the game telephone, like back in school, where you're like, hey, Cindy likes John, and by the time it comes back around to you, it's nowhere even close to Cindy likes John? That's the way I see about religion. I feel it's been manipulated over time for people to gain power or gain wealth, or it just, to me, that's the way I see it. Now, could I be wrong? Absolutely. But am I right? Probably. Somewhere in the middle. See how I did that there? And again, too, I'm not sure if you guys heard the wind chimes. I forgive you, like, as we're getting this awesome YouTube channel set up, we are in the man cave of the Rent's house. And for those of you who don't know, Rent's his parents. They're older, and so being legally blind and caring, I take care of them from time to time on the weekends, and I use this space to do my own thing, and there's still no garage. And I apologize for the cushions because it snowed yesterday on April 27th here in Chicago, so it's not fully set up yet. Last week was the pilot episode, now we're in episode number 2, so we're just kind of working out some kinks, camera angles. Like, this is a one-man show. I just want everyone to know that. It's a one-man show talking about religion, and hey, if I can talk about religion today, and this garage doesn't fall down on me, maybe I'm right, or maybe there isn't a God. Who said that? Anyways, I hope you're drinking at home with me, whatever your choice of drink is. Trying to give up beer for a little bit, putting on the calories, my IPAs go down too smoothly. But moving forward with religion, again, too, I support it. I will be open-minded in having any sort of religious conversation with anyone from any sort of religious background. And I say that because if you're not willing to understand where other individuals are coming from, you're not willing to learn and grow. I believe that every single religion or faith-based person, even atheists, are fascinating to talk to because you want to learn, you want to grow. I once met an atheist veterinarian, and that was an interesting conversation because I'm like, so you care about animals, but you don't believe that there's anything after this world? No. I'm like, well, then why are you trying to save the animal? It was a whole like crazy conversation at a bar, but it was fascinating too because you're just trying to figure out, and it doesn't mean that they have a black heart or they're soulless or anything of that nature. It just means everyone has a different belief system, and we can't force our beliefs on other people, but we can learn and grow from one another, including those who have different religious beliefs than us. But as I digress, in terms of religious beliefs, I digress and transfer over to my great blind observation, which is heaven and the afterlife. And I've got the answers. A few weeks ago, I was doing stand-up comedy, and someone came on stage, and they started talking about the church and everything else. And I don't know where, like, all this stuff ties to you. Sometimes you have these, like, thoughts and ideas and concepts in your head. But needless to say, I was sitting there and I'm like, oh my God, I wonder if heaven is like the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Like, you get to choose if you played for multiple teams, like what team you go into the Hall of Fame as, whether it be a Chicago Bear or a Dallas Cowboy or a Green Bay Packer. I'm like, I wonder, like, let's say I live to 75 and I die and go to heaven because I'm a good person, or let's say I was a good Christian or Muslim or things like that, and yeah, let's say I die and go to heaven, I get 72 virgins. Well, that's 72 more virgins than I had my entire life on this earth. Granted, there's still time, but it's not really my cup of tea or glass of wine, as you might say. Anyways, so I'm sitting there, I'm like, I don't want to go into heaven at 75 years old. Like, that would be terrible. Like, I'm probably have bad hips. Like, I'm going to be even more blind than I already am. Like, I want to die and go in at, like, 27. Like, 27 was a really good year, right? Like, I was mature enough to where I was like no longer immature. Like I had a little bit of money, had some freedom, was in fairly good shape. Like I had a lot of fun that year. Like 27, good year. So I'm thinking like, well, like what happens if you go in at 27 and you're up in heaven, you're like kicking like, hey, and then we're like your friends kind of like, oh, hey man, you chose 27? Yeah, I chose 27. And you see someone like, hey Ryan, you're like, what's up? By the way, my real name's Ryan, not Mender. But, you know, it is what it is. And it's like, hey, what's going on? It's your dad. Dad, you're like 8 years old. Yeah, this is the best year of my life. That's really weird that you're going to be in heaven for eternity and you're 27 and your father's 8. Or vice versa, or some weird thing of that nature. It also got me thinking, too, they say in vows, till death do us part. So does that mean everyone's single in heaven? Like, I kind of think about that. Like, I know there's probably more words. I don't listen to the vows because I'm not worried. And I know everyone's like, Mender, like, you're drinking too much wine. Like, no, like, that's legitimate. Because, like, is everyone single in heaven? Because, like, I can't handle rejection. Like, I handled rejection enough early off in life. And, like, you better be damn sure when I go to heaven, like, I can see, right? So, just certain things to think about in that nature when you're thinking about heaven and dying and going to heaven, and you know what the options and opportunities are. And I thought to myself too, like, well, I love tailgating. So, is heaven like one giant tailgate before church? Like, do we have to go to church? But if we're gonna go to church, like, let's tailgate for like 6 hours, go in for an hour, and then come back out and have like a post tailgate. You know, beers, burgers, brats, shots, music, dancing, bags. A lot of fun stuff, right? You know? Like, do we get to see the world? I mean, like, I know the universe is gigantic, so there's a lot more that we can see, but, like, if you're like, I always wanted to go to Tahiti. Like, can you go spend, like, a week there? But then the other weird thing, too, is, like, who's serving us these things in heaven? You know, like, do we just transfer or transform to, like, going to Tahiti or another part of heaven? Like, do I immediately know all these people? Like, because, you know, I'm assuming there's a lot of people going to heaven that I don't know. Is there name tags? Do you get to, like, choose your own name? Is it like, well, over in that corner is the Johnson family and all their descendants? Or is it like everyone do their own thing? Because this is, like, very fascinating to me, right? Like, people don't ever mention that. Like, oh, we'll be together again in heaven. Well, like, you can choose your friends. You can't choose your family. Who's to say I want to hang out with my family? I do, though. Most of you. But it just begs the question, right? Like, what is heaven going to be like? You know? Are we playing sports all day? Who's serving us? Like, if I want cocktails, is it just like beer on tap? Or is it the people that should have went to hell, they're there as my cocktail server like 24/7? Or my waiter? Or, you know, just the people that do stuff around here? Is it like one big Amazon factory? If we need something, we just like hit a button and it shows up like at our front door. We're like, sweet, we got it. Like, that's what I would think. So, I digress. As you can tell, I'm slightly distracted as the wind chimes and the wind, they're coming in, and it's a lot of fun. But, I swear to God there's something out there, but I have no idea. And it's funny that I used God for that. To just check it out and figure it out. Anyways, getting back to heaven. And then, like, what if you sit there one day and you're like, hey, where's Uncle Bruce? And they're like, he didn't make it. What? He was such a good guy. Like, what happens if you get up to heaven one day and you're just sitting there waiting and, like, everyone's up there and you're like, where's John and Kevin? And they're like, oh, you didn't hear? No. Like, well, no one knows, but they didn't make it. And then you're, like, sitting there and, like, God's like, do you have any questions? Yeah, what did my friends do? I'm just curious. Like, it wasn't tweeted out or hashtagged. You know, so it's like fascinating, like, to start to think about things of that nature. Kind of like pique the mind and the interest of everything. But with that, things to be said and thought of about heaven moving forward in life. I hope I've given you some good ideas in terms of like religion and faith. And also heaven. And I do always like to recommend not just an alcoholic drink. While we sit here with me, Mender, the blind observer, I also like to promote different forms of media that I find fascinating. Last week I promoted the Joe Rogan podcast, which is probably my favorite, but I just got into Philosophize This, and I highly recommend going on TuneIn Radio or any sort of like iTunes and checking out Philosophize This podcast. It's something to intrigue the mind, pique your interest, and like I said, I kind of believe in sharing. Like, I love it when people share stuff with me. Again, it's the golden rule. So go from there and check it out and let me know what you think. Like I said, you can hit me up. You can also check out my website, which is grabyourpotential.com. You can also follow me on Twitter at grabyourpotential. Hashtag TheBlindObserver7 or just at TheBlindObserver7 on Instagram. And as we leave, I always like to leave with what I like to call a one-hitter, which is a concept I've come up with, but haven't really fully written out yet in terms of comedy and things of that nature. So this week's one-hitter is, of course there's a heaven, because everything in my life, via this phone, goes to some sort of cloud, so why wouldn't I? There's something to think about. And next week, we have a very special episode. I will be traveling on location to someplace special. But next week's episode, I'm going to give you some of my brilliant ideas on how I could potentially be a millionaire or a billionaire. You know, just sharing these awesome concepts that someone can steal or take and manifest and make their own. And that will be cool because we will be on location. We'll be experiencing some great alcohol while we enjoy a nightcap here with me, the Blind Observer. And as always, before I let you go, there's a lot of wine there. I don't know if I'm going to finish it. I feel like I should finish this just a little bit. Like, that's another thing. Is it God's plan, as Drake would say? If I finish this, is that God's plan or is that my free will? Because I'm confused there. Because I think it is God's plan, but I also think my free will allows me to hit the stop button or keep drinking. But I feel like, why stop until I'm done? If that makes sense? So it's like this circular logic thing of that nature. That's another other thing I like about Josh, is it's like $11 a bottle. I don't feel bad like pounding it down. And I do want to end every episode with an empty glass, because that's why we call it the Blind Observer, #nightcap. Because we're having a nightcap talking about my blind observations in society, in the world, which, golden rule is the most applicable to all sorts of religions, trumps all of them, right? You believe in a higher power, you do great unto other people, you do good unto other people, you're just a good person, good things are going to happen to you. You know, because I would hate to think that if you're a great individual of, we'll just say, a different religion, Judaism, well, let's say Greek Orthodox, because today's their Easter. I don't want to pick on Israel, because they're constantly being bombarded. Anyways, let's say you're Greek Orthodox, and then like everyone, like the rapture comes, and they're like, oh, sorry, you chose the wrong religion. You're going to hell. I don't believe in that. Doesn't make sense. We're all logical here, people. Drunk or sober, we're logical. Just think about it. I do like to pour myself a lot of wine, though, which I find to be fascinating. But hey, apparently it's Jesus' blood, so it makes me like more powerful type of, I don't know, connected somewhere in there. I don't know. But anyways, as I always like to leave everyone off, remember, it's about progress, not perfection. And tune in next week as we go over my brilliant ideas in terms of becoming a millionaire or a billionaire. Until then, let it ride.